your glass up high. Turn it up, it's time. Tall boy on the line. Love breathe, they will last. Raise your...
Welcome back to episode 279 of the Tall Boy Radio podcast. And as we always say, who knows where it goes when the beer flows? Well, it is going in a direction that I'm very excited about tonight. I am a long-term fan of music, as you can tell by my grey whiskers, that I listened to music long before it was streamed, long before you could buy it on Apple, long before you could buy it on CD, or even cassette. So yes, we're talking about the resurgence of vinyl. And I'm joined tonight by Ben. Did you want to say hello and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hello. Yes, my name is Ben. I am originally from Germany. I live in Gibraltar since 2012. Used to live in London before that for 23 years. And my background is I used to run a studio in London. I became a producer and remixer, and then I started my own record label, Millennium Records, in 1994. Which I was running for over 20 years.
Wow.
And then I left and I live here now in Gibraltar. That's the short version.
That is a short version, but nonetheless, there's a few things of interest in there. So did you want to tell us then a little bit about your own record label and how that came to be and some of the music that you created?
Well, as I said, I mean, I used to run a small studio in Portobello Road, and was very much involved in producing and remixing. And I got fed up with it after a couple of years. I mean, I know it's for a lot of people it sounds very romantic, working with well-known bands and remixing, and it is okay. But it's just, you spend like 24 hours in a room without a window, and I always wanted to go into the business side of things. I found that more interesting. Record companies that were coming and going, many stories, and it was just my personal drive and my personal ambition to leave the creative side behind the mixing desk and actually get into the business. And I was very much into dance music at the time, and I started a dance label. It was a pure dance label, so we churned out everything from techno to drum and bass to trip hop to chill out music. We collaborated a lot with other styles and built a very, very strong distribution setup in 28 countries, which helped me to survive for so long. And yes, that was it. I was very much involved in also in the heavy metal scene, because friends of mine, they were running the biggest independent metal labels around the world. So I always had my ears and my fingers in all sorts of pies, but the core business was the dance label, Millennium Records.
Wow, fair play. I mean, that's pretty exciting. I've got to be honest, it's not a genre of music that I'm overly familiar with. Rock music probably back in the day was much more my cup of tea, if I'm going to be.
Absolutely. I mean, I grew up with rock music. I grew up with classical music. So I'm up for all sorts of styles. I mean, it was just, the dance thing was exploding at the time. I mean, London was buzzing, and personally, I was very much into it, producing it myself at one stage as well. I just liked it. I couldn't listen to dance music anymore these days. I find it difficult to listening to music at all these days, but it would not be dance music. That would not be my choice.
No, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. Must be quite an unusual journey, though. So you're involved in the creative side of it, and maybe it's like you say, it's overly romanced that you think about music, you think the idea of creativity and having an end product sounds fabulous, but then when you put it, when you're stuck in a box and you've got no windows and you're there for 24 hours and you're basically working your butt off.
Yeah.
Did that affect your love of it at all?
No, it was amazing because I came to London with hardly any money. I didn't know anyone, and no one needed another guy making music in London. That was in 1989. And I just had one telephone number a German guy gave me, and that was a telephone number of the publisher of Rick is it Rick Ashcroft?
Richard Ashcroft or Rick Astley?
Yeah, Rick Ashley. Hang on, is it Rick Ashley? Yeah. And I met him and met him in a Chevy office in North London. I still remember that. And he gave me another telephone number of another producer in London. He had a studio set up in Ledbroke Grove. A German producer, actually. He did all the Transvision Vamp records. John Fox, he did Man Without Heads. Quite an interesting rooster. He used to be the keyboard of Birth Control. I don't know if you remember that band, Birth Control.
No, I don't remember them. I do remember
anyhow,
Transvision Vamp.
Yeah, so he liked it. I left a bit of material. He liked it, and he put me in that studio, which I then later bought off him. So for me, it was heaven. You know, after 5 months, I was in the middle of the scene. So it didn't affect my creativity. I loved it. You know, I was. It was my dream, and I loved being stuck in that box for 24 hours for I God know how many years. So it didn't affect my creativity, but it kind of made me to do more than just that.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes
Yeah.
sense. And during that time, then, who was the most interesting? Well, who were the most interesting people that you worked with, if you don't mind my asking?
I worked together with I don't know. Do you know the journalist Chris Neitz?
Not off the top of my head, no.
He is the most renowned music journalist in the UK. He used to have his own columns in Melody Maker, NME, Needs Must. He wrote all the books. He did the last interview with Bob Marley. He's one of the top guys in the music, and he had a dance hit at the time with his girlfriend, an American singer. A DJ made for them, and he had a #1 dance hit. And of course, he couldn't really do music, and all the majors wanted him to do a remix. You know, that's how it worked back in the day. You know, you had a band in the charts on #1, you needed to do the remix package. So they asked him, and somebody recommended him to me, and so we teamed up, and we built an act named Secret Knowledge, and he basically got all the jobs in because he was so well connected. I mean, he had all the stars on his personal mobile phone, and we remixed everything from the Prodigy to Malcolm McLaren, Primal Scream, Dave Stewart from the Eurythmics, Love and Rockets. We did about 60 remixes or something.
Wow, yeah, some big names there.
Lots of it. I can't really remember. I really always have to think about it. So yeah, I mean, yes, a lot of big bands, and it was good fun. I did other stuff as well, apart from just the remixing, but that was kind of, you know, the door in, basically.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, that I mean, fair play. That certainly sounds interesting. Like you say, the Primal Scream was someone I was a big fan of back in the day. That was the kind of music.
I have some crazy studio nights with the Primals. Don't worry about that.
I'm a little bit envious, I'm not going to lie. So, in terms of, for the sake of our listeners, then, who are wondering what producing entails, can you give us a little bit of an insight into what that, what it was that you used to do there?
If I produced my own stuff, I just went into the studio and did whatever I liked. When it came to remixing, remixing is basically you can do what you like. You get the record company sends you a DUT with the individual parts of the song, and you can grab whatever you like throw it in the pot, and then throw anything in you want to throw in. Chris had also a huge record collection, and he always had some good ideas. We sampled quite a lot of stuff. He had he had really cool records from the States as well. He used to live in the States. And it was a mix of programming music, new music, and using snippets of the original.
Cool.
That's what you do. So you work with samplers, you work with keyboards, effects units, a mixing desk, and however we felt, we did that. Sometimes we did pure dance mixes. Sometimes we did really mixes which were off the wall and not danceable. And you just sit there and you basically do what's vibe is telling you, in the moment, what feels right. I mean, sometimes a couple of the songs we had to remix, they were shit, they were boring. But then you just took maybe one bit, maybe one vocal snippet, and scrapped all the rest, and built your own track around it.
Fair play.
And
are you involved in the music industry today?
No, for God's sake, please, no. I'm considering I had a dance label. I was lucky that I survived until 2012. I mean, like, how many years? When did I? Yeah, over 20 years. Because all the labels died. I mean, there were thousands of independent small labels around me, and they all died very, very quickly. And the only reason why I survived is from the beginning, I made sure that I had distribution in a lot of different territories. So I was always directly presented with my music I released in retail via the distributor, and I always could uphold a certain level of sales. But music has died abruptly. The value of music has died abruptly, and I'm not blaming Napster or the internet. I think one of the reasons why the value of music has died is record companies started flooding the markets in the 90s. We all did it because music sold. Everything you put out sold. And the markets were flooded with music. Music was not, when I was young, music was a secret. It was exciting. When the new Pink Floyd record came out, I couldn't sleep for weeks. And then finally you could hear the single on the radio. and when the album was out, you were just rushing to the record shop and holding the record in your hand, and everything was just like magic. So this kind of magic has disappeared by flooding the markets. And then in terms of technology, all of a sudden people also could do music themselves slowly on computers, not as good as it's now, and back and forth. So the secret on the magic got lost, and with it, the value of music deteriorated. But what also vanished was the way people wanted to consume music, and they didn't want to buy albums anymore.
Yeah.
And iTunes was smart. They were the first to realize it. They did the first digital download platform where you could actually download a song for 99 cents. And then Spotify guy, I really respect, because this guy, I think he started fighting for the Shopify concept, the streaming concept, for over 13 years. He was already doing it when no one had even heard of him. There's a very, very nice TV documentary about him. I think it's a TV series. I forgot how it's called. And he digged it very early, that the people simply don't want to buy music anymore. They just want to have it on their phone, and they want to listen to whatever they want, and they want to pay a subscription. And that killed it all. Then it was over. I mean, people couldn't sell CDs, and we made the most money on physical product as record companies, CD sales and vinyl sales. And when that disappeared, all the record companies disappeared. I mean, even the strong independent record companies, they're all sold to the majors. They were all brought up by majors. I don't think there aren't many independent record companies out there anymore.
No, and I mean it's sad. As someone like I grew up listening to the music in the 90s. I love like those indie record labels, Factory Records, which is obviously very, very
Anything.
famous. Yeah,
Yeah,
Silvertone Records, who produced the Stone Roses' first album.
yeah,
That was the kind of stuff I absolutely loved and still love to this day. And
yeah,
like it's interesting, although you identify the likes of Spotify, and that is how people want to consume their music. They've seen
yes,
their opportunity, and like you say, the end of there is the end there of the physical product. However, one of the
yeah.
things that we wanted to talk about tonight is that resurgence of vinyl and that people are wanting to buy vinyl again. Why do you think that is?
Well, I don't think that people ever stopped buying vinyl. Why? Why? Well, I think it started quite a few years ago. It's not like a phenomena from last year. I remember because I'm still in touch with people from the industry, and I remember they told me many years ago that vinyl sales have completely gone through the roof. And well, maybe it's a bit of nostalgia, and I mean, it's simply nice to hold something in your hands, you know. Um, I mean, people like reading books. And a lot of people, they don't like reading Kindle. They like to hold the book in their hands. And I think it's holding music in your hand. Um, it's just quite nice, isn't it? To have an LP in your hand and then take it out of the sleeve and put it on the record player. The reason why it actually, I don't know if the people who started buying vinyl again, if these are new people or simply old people who always had vinyl anyway and then decided to start to buy again. I have no idea. It would be interesting to know the demographics
Yeah,
of
I
these
mean,
vinyl.
I suspect you're right. People of my generation and maybe older and a few younger, to be fair, there's a certain ceremony in putting that of taking the vinyl out of the label and placing it on the actual record playing machine and listening
Yeah,
to it, listen to the crackle, and then you've
yeah,
got the sleeve notes and everything like that. There is a certain magic to it, almost a ceremony, like I say.
yes,
However, I mean, I am aware. I mean, I don't think it's as big, but there is a younger generation which are interested in buying these vinyls now. And again, though, you see it, and it's maybe I don't know whether it's part of social media promotion, but they tend to share the product on social media, and I don't know how much of it is an interest in the product itself or just getting likes and views on social media. I don't know.
I have no idea. I really don't know. I mean, I know a few. I mean, what I do know is that the people who buy vinyl, there is a vinyl scene out there. For example, the heavy metal scene. The heavy metal music is still one of the few genres which really work very well because they have such a loyal fan base. It's their religion, and they like vinyl. They like vinyl. It still means something to them. There's
Yeah.
also a very big scene. I didn't even know it existed. A friend of mine runs a label. It's called Inside Out Music. Very successful label, and he specialized in prog rock,
Okay.
which I found absolutely awful. It's all these old members from Genesis forming up again. This pompous muso music, with synthesizers and very well recorded guitars. And it's a huge scene. The guy told me his Dream Theater is one of his bands as well, and he told me his sales figures on vinyl, and I couldn't believe it. How much vinyl these bands no one heard of, no one wants, is actually still selling.
That's
Um, it's horrible, this kind of music. I can't look it up. Inside Out Music,
yeah.
and then
I have actually heard of them.
Inside Out Music. They're also bought by Sony now. They used to be part of Century Media Records, which was one of the biggest heavy metal labels around. And he has got all these prog rock bands. God knows. Oh yeah, prog rock. And these people buy vinyl, and they're just, this is an older generation, you know. Um,
So what about yourself then? Do you buy much vinyl? Have you got a vinyl collection?
No, here's the thing. I have shitloads of vinyl. The reason why I have shitloads of vinyl is because I was connected to so many distributors and record companies, and they always wanted to throw away stuff and other people this and that. So I took it all and I stored it over the years quite well. I collected it regularly and I stored it over the last 20 years. And I decided a couple of years ago to start selling it. I have about, I don't know, 300,000 records or something. Personally, no, I'm not involved. A friend of mine is handling it. Is handling all the administration. We are constantly updating and the sales part of it. Because I couldn't do it. I live in Gibraltar. I couldn't even post a record from here because of the postal service. So all that is, I mean, I go there here and then to Germany and look at things, but I'm not involved. I couldn't. I am busy with other things. But I still have an interest, you know. I mean, I still listen to stuff we find and search for stuff on YouTube. I don't have nothing in my house. I don't have a record player. I don't have a CD player. I'm on Spotify. But I haven't got, because music has been my entire life from the age of 10 till the age of 40. I'm kind of very much detached from it. If you understand, it was great, and it's a closed book, you know.
Yeah. I think I can understand that. I do. So if anybody were interested then in buying one of your 300,000 records, where would they go for that?
Well, I have a shop on Discogs, which is the best marketplace to sell records. I mean, some people don't like Discogs and they talk, oh, Discogs, but it's the only place to actually sell. And I have a shop. It's called Needle and Pitch, like the needle and pitch.
Yeah.
Needle and pitch. And in the moment, I think I have 133,000 listed, and I still have a small warehouse full with another 180,000, and there are a couple of pallets flying around, and there's so much good stuff on there. I wish I had time, because it's good fun to go through it, you know. So I'm still in touch with the guy who's handling it, and he sends me stuff and look at this and look at that. Yeah, no, it's a lot of stuff. And people, I tell you what, I mean, people buy the funniest music. He is a little bit more. I mean, we sell a lot. I have a guy sitting there 12 hours a day just to handle order. And people buy everything. And I ask him, why do you put this into the shop? You know, strange German Volksmusik and classical records and when I look through the order sheets, people buy everything. There is no clear direction that I could say, oh, they buy the rare edition of the first Cult album or something, LP. No, it's not. I mean, they do too, but they buy everything. Everything you can imagine. From the worst music to the coolest music to the strangest music. They buy.
Wow.
And
Yeah,
we don't know why.
there's no accounting for taste, as they always say. So
No.
in amongst that collection, then what's some of the rarities that you can share with us then that are there for people to purchase?
Everything. we have so many rarities. We also have a lot of rarities on CDs. We have all genres. There is absolutely no restriction. I mean, I found a Bauhaus rarity the other day, a limited edition, which I also think I put on Facebook. It was actually a box CD set. There were only 2,000 pressed. We have a couple of very nice Joy Division rarities. I don't know where to start. I really don't know where to start. I mean, I put a few. I did an interesting post about a couple of rarities. We discovered B Movie was with it. The Cult was with it. An interesting record from the Chameleons, which I completely forgot. I loved the Chameleons when I was young. 12-inch rarities from the Cocktail Twins. We found it's everything. I mean, it's like going through these palettes. It's good fun stuff you
Oh, I can
find.
imagine.
You know?
Yeah, I can imagine. What kind so in terms of when you talk about rarities, I'm not asking you to give away what kind of money you're making on them, but I'd be curious to know what kind of money they sell for, some of those items. I'm a big fan of Joy Division. Where I live in the UK here, we're not that far from Macclesfield. So, you know what I mean? It's the area where the chap was from. Obviously, the Manchester music scene, which they were a big part of, is just up the road from us. We're here in
Yeah.
South Chester. It's about 60 kilometers away. So those Joy Division records, what kind of money would you be looking at for those, just out of interest?
We have this one rare Joy Division album, which they did before they did. What was their first album called? Was it
Unknown Pleasure.
Unknown Pleasures? Yeah, that was their first one, and they did a strange one before that. I think that goes like for a couple of £100.
Wow.
I really needed to look it up, but I think the talking about Discogs, they have a very sophisticated parameters. So you can actually, if you don't know what an album, well, I mean, my guy who runs it, he of course he's very knowledgeable. He knows it mostly, but sometimes the algorithms in Discogs can tell you the value of a certain record if you're not sure.
Wow.
If so, but as I said, I mean, it's the Dance Society. A lot of punk rarities are there. A lot of rare classical music. I don't know anything, but apparently we have a shit thousands of box sets which are rare, which cost like a couple of hundred of quid. But I don't know why, and that's that's what the algorithm in Discogs finds out for you, which is pretty handy.
Yeah, it's pretty handy. That is pretty
Yeah,
handy.
yeah.
So just out of interest then, what was the first record you bought?
What was the first record I bought? It was a Bob Marley record,
Okay.
and I was very young, and I was 13. And Bob Marley was the first concert I have seen in my hometown in the big concert hall. That was my first record I ever bought, but I don't know which one. It was one of his early ones.
As far as first records to buy, Bob Marley is pretty cool, to be fair. I can tell you the first record I bought 2 at the same time, 2 7-inch singles. And it was, again, I was quite young, so I don't know if it was quite in my teenage years, maybe slightly before. Suddenly by Billy Ocean.
Okay.
And the theme tune to Dog Tanyan and the Muskehounds, which was a cartoon that was on at the time.
When I was young, I did a lot of cassette recording. I remember that because I was obsessed with music at a very young age, and for me, it meant anything. And whenever I could, I was sitting in my room, and and I tried to record whatever I could from the radio. So I was very much before I bought vinyl, very much a cassette guy.
Yeah.
I recorded everything. We also had in Germany, we had Roddy Rockers was an English guy, but he had a radio show in Germany. I remember listening to that. But I remember that I bought a single. I remember I bought "I Am Sailing" from Rod Stewart. Remember that?
I do remember that. I do remember that.
Say, I bought that single. I remember that, and I remember that one of the first albums I bought was one of the Led Zeppelin albums. I remember that, and then when I became a regular buyer, when I had enough pocket money, it then started with Pink Floyd, and all this kind of stuff. Pink Floyd was the love of my youth.
Fair play. Fair play.
Yeah.
So you had I mean, I'll give you credit where credit's due. You had a pretty cool taste in music. That's not too shabby at all. Well, the first album I ever bought was, I think, Human Racing by Nick Kershaw.
So what? It's fine. It's a good song. If it's a good song, it's a good song. Look, I'm a Prince fan. I love Prince.
Yeah.
Listen, I had a very, very long phase where I was just listening to punk. I loved punk. I was really into punk. I was also in Germany into the punk scene. I was a little of a punk myself. I was into all those post-punk stuff, Factory Records you mentioned,
Yeah.
Bauhaus, all this strange stuff coming up, and then I heard, and that's interesting. It was the '80s, and in the '80s, every commercial records in the charts, because I was also very much interested in chart music, because I was obsessed with music. I was interested in everything. I listened to the music, the sounds, how did they do it? I was just interested in chart music. They spend so much money in making every record sound like $1 million records. It was polished, it was overproduced. And I remember it was the time when the digital synthesizer came out as well. I remember it was the year there was Tina Turner had the hit with "What's Love Got to Do with It," which sounded like polished. It was Dire Straits with this MTV song, which sounded like a multi-million dollars. Everything sounded like multi-million dollar music. It was just extremely well produced, and it sounded expensive. And I remember I was sitting in my living room, stoned, listening to every Monday there was in Germany the radio show there where they played the charts, and then they came to number one, and it was Prince, Purple Rain, and I never heard of the guy. And I was sitting there, and when the guitar came in, and I thought, what the fuck is that? Because it sounded like a guitar, it would sound like my guitar I would play in a rehearsal soon. It sounded really badly recorded, and everything else sounded like badly recorded. It was completely unpolished.
Yeah.
But when the guy started singing, and then the whole song, I just think, what the fuck is that? And from that moment onwards, I listened to Prince religiously, because he was what I really admired and still admire. He was the perfect executor. And that guy had an idea, and he had millions, and he was in the studio. He didn't care who was there, what instrument was there. He grabbed it, and he put the idea on tape, quick and fast. He had people behind the mixing desk on his payroll. They were working 24/7, and he mixed it and he put it out. And when you listen to Prince songs, they are so badly produced. They are not polished. There are mistakes on there, but the vibe is, I still get goosebumps when I hear his stuff sometimes. So that's why I changed from listening to punk. I was obsessed with Prince. Prince was amazing. He was an amazing artist, which he later proved as well.
Oh
Um,
yeah. I remember Purple Rain when it first came out, and you're right. It was very different to everything else that was out in the charts. Everything else, like you say, had that real polished feel to it.
yeah,
But
yeah.
if
He had
you, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, he had a punk attitude, and in terms of recording and to say that's it, I don't care, And there are hundreds of hours of interviews with all the people who work for him, and he had 3 female engineers, and they said it. He came in and he had this guy was doing music 24 hours a day. I mean, he has a vault full of music. He never stopped making music. He built this massive complex in Minneapolis. He didn't do it to show off. He needed that. The guy needed 5 studios because he was working on 5 different albums. He needed his own little about big stage. The guy was just a creative explosion. He was constantly making music, and he didn't have the time and the nerve in the 80s, and he was still working with tape to spend weeks in producing a track. So most of the stuff he put out, especially on the Sign of the Times album, is monitor mixes. It's just stuff you take normally home to listen to at home. So how does it sound? It's so raw.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I like that. No one ever
Yeah.
did that.
No, but like you say though, it is that punk attitude. Punk
Total
music.
punk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't polished. It was the polar opposite to everything else, wasn't it? It was a reaction. It was a reaction that came maybe from the government at the time, and then Britain was a pretty shitty place to be, and it was
Yeah.
just a reaction to that, and people who just wanted to get their emotions and put them out there, and there was
Yeah.
nothing polished about it. Same as yourself. I love
Yeah.
punk music. I listen to punk music today, and anybody will tell you that there's punk music being made today. Well, I disagree with them. It came at that time, during
Yeah.
the late 70s and early 80s. That was
Actually, yes, actually, because you asked me if I listened, actually, if I ever listen to music again here, it's actually punk. I've still put the old punk stuff on.
yeah,
Because it's just there. It's snotty. It's simple, and it has the vibe. It's just there. Um, I'm very much a punk admirer still. I
yeah,
have to say. Yeah.
good, yeah, good man, good man. Me too, to be honest. Like I say, I listen to that. I listen to like the indie music as well because those records like Happy Mondays. I loved Happy Mondays and people like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, they were the same sort of thing. There was absolutely, their later album, Pills and Thrills and Bellyaches, was probably a little bit more polished than it needed to be. But
Mhm.
their early stuff is phenomenal. It's absolutely fantastic, and it's that
Mhm.
I like to listen to now. And like you say, it's the fine line between creativity and production. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Hearing what they want to say and what they want to put out. It doesn't need to be polished. Doesn't need to be perfect. The beauty of this music sometimes is in its imperfections, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I always made the best records with the worst equipment, and there's something about it which works. But talking about music and vinyl, which what I really liked, and I was living in London. I was living in West London near Ladbroke Grove, and there were loads of illegal reggae clubs in some Rastafarian's basement, and I was living in the Brevican Road, which was full of reggae freaks, and I spent many hours on the weekends in these illegal reggae clubs and the original reggae DJs, and they played all the singles, and I love the original reggae dub singles. I mean, they just sound amazing,
Mm.
and I haven't. I should have collected these reggae singles, but I never did. But I would like to have them. In Jamaica produced the way they produced those reggae records. They did them fast as well, and they had so much oomph. There
Mm.
was so much vibe on the vinyl. You can't listen to that on CD. You have to put the vinyl on.
No, that's interesting. So we take it back then to vinyls and to and CDs. And what the creation of the CD, that was the start of the digital age of music, wasn't it? Really, and
Yeah,
everything that perfect tone. So you had the pure music, didn't have the crackle that the vinyl had, didn't have the danger of it getting chewed up in your machine that cassettes had.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
And do you ever think the CDs will ever make the same resurgence then that records had? Because there was a little bit of ceremony of that, taking it out of that case, pressing it down to get it out of the center. It was guaranteed to break the bits
Ye-
that hold it on in
ye-
there.
Yes, I mean, in terms of format, I can't exactly recall, but I think the format was well received by the people. I think they quickly because they still could hold it in their hands. It had a sleeve. A lot of them had a like 16-page booklet in it, and so it still had that slightly magic touch. When the CD came out, everybody said it sounds amazing, and with the CD, all of a sudden, people bought expensive stereo systems and listened to this. Doesn't it sound amazing? So crystal clear, and um, yes and no, because when you digitalize a recording, it cuts out bits because the analog signal is turned into a digital signal, which is just basically ones and zeros. You automatically lose a few ones and zeros in between, and that that gives the whole sound the the clean this clean crystal clearness, but it cuts out frequencies. And I think it's okay for music which was already originally produced like that. For example, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, big 80s production was done with digital drum machines, with digital synthesizers. It was very well produced by Trevor Horn. He did all the big productions. Then yes, it works on CD. It can be a really with a good system. It can sound amazing. Or the Grace Jones Slave to the Rhythm. These are all these big polished productions which were also done with a lot of digital instruments already in the studio. But I can't listen to the Clash on CD. Uh, it doesn't work. It's I don't want this music to sound crystal clear. You know, it's people were, I think, a bit blended by this whole it sounds so crystal clear sound. For me personally, it wasn't perfect, but I have very good ears. Um, I hear lots of things other people don't hear, and if people think it sounds great, then that's fine. I don't like certain records on CD. It's doesn't do them any favor.
No, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. Certain records were built for vinyl, and
Yeah,
I wonder then with the danger with that then. So if we're thinking that potentially that the vinyl resurgence or the resurgence of vinyl records, which never really went away like it was predicted to, you know what I mean? They sort of stated that's it, that's the end of vinyl, but it never did. And now the
no,
sales are picking back up, and you can go into HMV in your city centre, and you can see a much bigger vinyl section. It's growing and growing and growing again, which is great to see. But
yeah.
I just wonder if it is purely nostalgia, is there a danger that actually one day that it will die out and that people will listen to the music they're listening to now and they'll want that crystal clear quality that they get from their streaming services?
Hmm. Good question. I don't know. I mean, if I see the kids these days, these 12-year-olds, I don't think they have any connection to vinyl. But
No.
I don't think, but I don't think they have any connection to music anyway. I
Mhm.
mean, they have such a short attention span. I don't think that they even understand the concept of an album. For
Yeah.
them, music is just like what's there. It comes out of the phone. They laugh about it. They share it, and then it's dead again. Um, so I think because we grew up with the concept of an artist we admired, and for us, the new album, it meant something. You know, it had a meaning. It came out at a certain time with a certain sound, and we were excited about it. And then 3 years later, we couldn't wait to listen to the new album. So the younger generation, I don't think they're with it. I don't think they are the ones who will ever kind of, take on vinyl, except their parents get them into it. I really don't know. It's difficult to say. I mean, it would be really interesting to see who buys all this vinyl.
Yeah.
You know?
I certainly know with my kids anyway. I'll play them music, and I'll stick them on some of the music that I'll listen to. And God bless them, they'll give it a
Yeah,
go. I mean, they're very young. They won't sit through a full album, and they've got no interest in because they consume music in exactly the way that you talk about there. They'll see it
yes,
on, they'll see it on YouTube. They'll,
yeah,
the stuff they listen to is from films and movies and people I've got no interest in
yeah.
hearing about.
It's snippets. It's music coming out of computers. I mean, I can't listen to. Sometimes I have an interest, and friends of mine that have kids like 14, 15, and I ask them what you're listening to. It's just awful. I mean, but that's taste. I mean, I'm not, I'm not dissing them. Yeah, I mean, look, it would be interesting, really, really interesting to see. I mean, when you said when you go into HMV, there's so many LPs. I mean, do you sometimes observe who's looking at them, or have you ever done that, or just maybe hang around for 10 minutes and see who looks at the LPs? I mean, could you identify any age group or?
Well, I must admit, when I go into HMV, the people, when I used to go in, when I was in my 20s, the people there in their 20s and 30s. I'm in my
Yeah,
50s now. And when I go in, the people I see looking through the vinyls are mainly the
yeah,
same age as me. Now, I'm not going to say that there aren't people much younger than me that are buying them, but it generally tends to be people in my age group. And like you say, I don't think you're too far off the money when you say you're talking about nostalgia.
yeah,
But even with that, the records that you see in there now, they're reprints, you know what I mean? They're reprints of those original albums, and even that, you lose a little bit of the sound quality because the way that they're recorded that now is obviously a much more perfect process. Technology has developed, and you can create, a much better sound on vinyl than perhaps you could back in the day. So some of the stuff in my collection is stuff from before I was born. I love things like the Beatles, and I would happily listen to the Beatles on vinyl. And yeah, I'll be honest, a couple of mine are reprints, but most of my Beatles albums are from the
yeah.
original releases in the 60s.
So when you say reprints, do they have a new way of cutting new masters for vinyls and then cutting the copies from that, or
I
or,
mean,
or how?
as as far as I know, like I say, I don't yeah, I don't it's the music is cleaned up before it's recorded onto it. And if you listen to, say, like I don't have Abbey Road on the original, but I do have a reprint. Now, when I listen to the original Abbey Road that a friend of mine has, it's
Yeah.
beautiful. It's got that crackle. My version is a lot clearer. It's still got a
Okay.
little bit of a crackle to it. It's still not as pure as if you were to listen to it
So,
on.
so have they remastered it?
Yeah, it's been remastered. It's been
Okay.
remastered.
Okay. So this is how the process normally works. I don't know if you're interested in that or
Oh,
um.
yeah.
No, but so simply, you are in the studio, you create a tune, and so on the mixing desk, and when the tune is right, you basically uh, uh, put it on a master tape. Yeah, we used to work with DUT tapes back in the day, which were really good. They were digital, but it was an analog tape. They were little cassette tapes. So
Yeah.
when I was happy with the mix, I put it on DUT. Okay, so I had a like a cassette. This was the piece uh, um, I then had to, so in order to, let's say well, it was an album, or let's say one tune, it doesn't really matter. So for me to um, to press either a CD from or a vinyl from, you need to go into a mastering studio. And what they do in the mastering studio, they take that tape and they basically run it through an equalizer.
Mhm.
A little bit like the equalizer on your stereos. I'm sure you have a stereo system. You have treble, bass.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's basically you run it through a more sophisticated equalizer. You can't change anything on the music because that's mastered. That's on there. That's how it sounds. But you make a few adjustments. Maybe a few more mid frequencies are missing. That's what you do. And when you've done that, when you want to cut a record, you take an acetate, which is a very heavy black piece of vinyl, very heavy. You put it on, and then you play the tune, and then the needle carves it into the acetate, and that's the master, which you then use to press the vinyl from. So when they say repressing, I think what they do is I'm sure they have digitalized the analog recording anyway. So the original recording of the Abbey Road album was probably on half-inch tape master, but they must have digitalized that. So all they did, they just took the digital copy, went into a mastering studio and added just frequencies, send it to a very sophisticated equalizer basically, and that's why it doesn't sound. They try to make it sound better, whatever that means, So let's make it a little bit more brighter because, but that's why your repressing doesn't sound as cool as the original, you know. I never understood this concept of all these remastered releases. Oh, it's a remastered version. All they do is they just send it to another equalizer again and just changing the frequencies a little bit here and there, but it's pointless. What's the point? It's I don't get it.
No, I don't either. I don't either. And don't get me wrong, I'm a sucker
Yeah.
for this kind of stuff because of my age. I like to own this stuff. So every time that Morrissey releases a new album, it gets bought. You know what I mean? Even if it's remastered or a remastered Smith's album, I'll buy it just because I want to have it in my collection.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. That's totally fine. But from my experience, remastering is you can't change what's on tape. Whatever you do, you can tweak and add this and more bass here and more bass there. I had an interesting. I worked with one of the best mastering studios in Camden Town, The Exchange, and the guy every record company mastered through him, from Depeche Mode to all the big stars to all the small stars. Everybody wanted to master it because the owner was an Indian guy. Graham, his name was. We called him Graham Master Blaster. and every time I had to master a CD or a vinyl, I booked a session with Graham, and he had big speakers, and he had old equalizers from the 60s. They had these big. He didn't have anything digital. He didn't have any digital equalizer, and he didn't have any. With the modern equalizers, if you raise the high frequencies, you can see it on a digital meter and all this kind of bullshit. He didn't have any of that, but he had two on a rack. They were like big as TV sets, old equalizers from the 60s with the big knobs. You still, he was just like this, and he was never looking at anything. So he put it on and he listened to it and he had it, and he just did things on the equalizer just by ear, and he always managed to give the whole recording. It all of a sudden it was there. It was there already, but he made it more there. Yeah. And I once asked him, what's your secret, Graham? Because I mean, you just, you play, you look around and play with your buttons with the equalizer, and then it's how, I mean, what is it? And then he said to me, I will never forget, he said, look, it's very simple. Music either sits in the speakers or music comes out of the speakers. So that was his philosophy. So he had this kind of, it didn't matter. For him, it was never, oh, is there enough bass in the music, or is there any high frequencies missing? It was never that. He just managed to kind of make the music come more out of the speakers. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I know exactly where you're coming from. I do, yeah.
And this was not like, oh, like that's what they did on the Beatles records. Oh, the hi-hat needs to have like 16 hertz in the high frequencies, He wasn't that kind of thing. He didn't care about these things, He just managed to get it out of the speakers. And he was just like playing with his big big knobs on that thing. It was great. Great guy, Graham Blaster, Indian guy.
Fair play.
Yeah.
Fair play. So just out of interest, and you mentioned earlier that you went to see Bob Marley. Was one of the first people you went to see live. Someone I never saw live. Must have been absolutely phenomenal. What's your most memorable live performance that you witnessed?
Prince, fuck me, Jesus fucking Christ. I mean, this guy was sick. What he put, he put an effort in his live shows, which I have never ever seen from any other band. For him, it was amazing. I saw him when he was in London, which was a bit of a pain in the ass because he disappeared for 10 years. I mean, he still was the highest earner. And he came then to London. You remember the 21 nights in London he did at the O2? That was in. Anyhow, he just sold out 21 nights. It was his big comeback in the O2 in London. And since years, I kept telling my friend, when Prince comes to London, I'll buy you a ticket. And then it happened. So I had to buy tickets for 40 friends, and we all went.
That was expensive.
But it's amazing. Absolutely amazing, mind-blowing. I mean, everything is planned. I mean, he's improvising as well, but he does not go on stage and say, oh, I play this song and that song. And then so he did a 2-hour show in the O2 stadium. And then there was a rumor that he was playing in the club next door, which holds like 500 people. So we went in there and we were waiting and waiting and waiting. And then around like 2:30 in the morning, he came on stage with a completely different band, and he played for 3 hours. And I was just standing basically just right next to him. And it was just like, he played everything. He played funk, he played rock, he played other people's songs, but everything was so super mega professional and with so much joy. Yeah, the guy loved playing, and that's why I will never forget seeing Prince. He loved it. Lots of bands these days, they come on stage, they can't be asked, they have to do it. I've seen like gigs from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. It was embarrassing, bored, not motivated, doing it for the money. And he was never like that. He always gave absolutely everything. That was amazing. And of course, I saw the Dead Kennedys in Germany. That was great. I remember that. I think the support band was Black Flag. I remember that. I saw one amazing live band. It's a band no one knows about. They're called Quellertag.
Well, I'm one of those people who's never heard about them. I can promise you that.
There are bands from in the whole heavy metal, whatever kind of genres are there. They're out there. You never heard of these people. Sell shitloads of records. You have no idea. It's a Norwegian band, and I saw them live at a festival. And these guys, they just went bonkers on stage. So much energy. I thought they're gonna die every minute. So I was quite excited. I really thought, one of them is going to get a heart attack. um, what else? Yeah, these. As I said, Prince will always be my number one live performance guy. I saw the Clash, but that wasn't in a nice environment. They had it. That was, I think, after the combat rock time, when they're already going downhill a little bit.
Okay.
There wasn't a lot of vibe in that gig. It was in a stadium and it was only half full. That was a bit disappointing. Yeah, I have to think. I mean, I've seen many live bands,
Mm.
but
No,
none of
that's cool. No, thank you for sharing those with us now. So normally with these episodes, we wrap them up round about the hour mark, which is where we are. So before we
okay.
go, yeah, if you would like to share where people can find Needle and Pitch online, so if they want to buy any of your records, if you could share that out there now, that would be great.
What do you mean share now? I
Just help.
only know you can you all you do is you go on Discogs and you can find the shop under the shop name Needle and Pitch,
Cool.
and then
Cool.
you are on our shop on Discogs.
There you go. And there's quite a bit to search through on there, and quite a bit to come from the sounds of things.
One sec, let me quickly have a look as well. Discogs.com. I mean, I have the direct link in my browser. Community.
Well, what we'll do, we'll put a link to this in the show notes for this episode so that people can click on it and they can go straight to the shop from there.
Well, do you want me to send you the link on WhatsApp?
Yeah, if you can. If not, I can find it on here and I can add it in. That's not a problem. But yeah, we'll add that in. So Ben, I would like to say thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for sharing your experiences and your love of music with us. I've really enjoyed listening to it. And
I hope so. I mean, did we talk enough about vinyl and stuff, and not too much about producing?
listen, anybody who's listened to an episode of Tallboy Radio in the past knows that we can go on little tangents, so it's absolutely fine. Yeah, we talked enough about vinyl, but I think anybody who listens to this and enjoys music will have enjoyed what they heard.
Oh, great, fantastic.
Cool. So thank you very much for joining us. And
You're welcome.
like I say, we'll add a link in there, and hopefully, maybe Tallboy Radio will send a little bit of business your way. Who knows? So thank you.
Nice
You.
one. You're welcome. Take good care.